Welcome to another episode of Data Center Pulse. We're here in San Jose, California at the 4th Annual Data Center Pulse Summit. We hold this in conjunction with the Green Grid's Technical Forum. And this is a point where we can get all of our peers together to discuss and debate different topics. And this session is about Project Mercury, the eBay data center that we've opened up in Phoenix, Arizona. So I have here with me
Jeremy Rodriguez with eBay.
Excellent, and we're going to be talking about Project Mercury specifically. We released the case study with the Green Grid, and it went into the actual details about the project and the results. And so we'll hit on some of that. So the key takeaway from Project Mercury and the session today is that aligning facilities and IT gives you uber efficiency. I mean, you can get some incredible things done, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But why don't you tell us about the three main drivers within the paper itself?
The first driver was the PUE. And the PUE really drove our efficiency. By understanding our design target for PUE, we were able to look at that across the design of the data center and optimize the solutions for that. The second point is around the total cost of ownership. So if you look at the TCO of your IT solutions, your facility solutions, and you look at those together, you really get the optimal solution that's the most benefit for your company, that's the most cost effective. And the third point is really around the data center maturity model, DCMM, and that's really to drive the guidelines of where you are in the industry versus where you want to be. So if you're starting out with a slightly older data center and you want to raise the bar, you really want to look at that data center maturity model and figure out where that target is to move your maturity up as you design a new facility.
And so when we wrote this paper with the Green Grid, it was really about, so that maturity model specifically, we found that we were hitting a lot of those things on the 5-year visionary components.
Absolutely, yes.
Right, so this is from the application side to the level 3 PUE, I mean just a lot of those pieces. And those three metrics, or those three tools, allowed us to really understand the effect of what we're implementing in the infrastructure itself, to measure it, to actually map it to the maturity. Right?
Absolutely.
So today's session with our members was all about the details of this project and really using the case study as a framework and those specific tools as drivers within those discussions. So we hit on a number of topics, right? So we'll touch on some of them, but the discussion was really cool. It was very, very intense and long. We had originally started with an hour and a half, and I think we went 3 hours on that topic.
We only go through a couple slides when we do this. In slide number 2, sure as heck, that's where we stopped and we started having deep conversations about what we did.
And that was the hour and a half mark already.
Yeah,
but density was a huge component of that. Right. So why did we actually choose density within the data center? And it wasn't just because we had a small space. We wanted to optimize it, but we'd actually figured out that there's a sweet spot for us. And we explained what that sweet spot was, right?
Right.
Do you want to go through some of that?
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of questions about where the sweet spot was and why we made that decision. And it was really driving back to those earlier points of PUE, total cost of ownership, and the maturity model, where we analyzed what server density would be correct for eBay in our location for this build out. And we optimized all those components around that. And that helped us drive our other decisions around the facility to do hot water cooling, to give different cooling options, to understand adiabatic or air-cooled systems. So it really changed the way we designed our data center.
Yeah, and I think the discussions today were great. I mean, if you think of, people were asking, well, why did you do containers? Why did you do that certain type of design? Why did you do it that density? Right, and how did you figure out how to do the weights within the building?
Right.
And then also hot water cooling was pretty active because they were saying, well, what is it and how did you get there? Because the ultimate driver for us was free cooling year round.
Right.
We wanted to make sure we could actually achieve that, and we achieved more than we expected.
Right.
And then of course the results that came out from a PUE and a partial PUE standpoint were just amazing.
Amazing. I can't say we were fully expecting those. It was part of the discovery that we had as we optimized, again, those 3 points earlier where the containerized systems are showing extreme efficiency. They brought the total site PUE down, which was phenomenal. We weren't expecting that.
Yeah.
In addition to really understanding when we go to operate a facility, let's make sure that as we go to different load targets, we're optimizing our PUE throughout that curve. That was another finding that
low load all the way up.
Low load all the way up. You design for ultimate efficiency when you're highly loaded, but how long does it take you to get there? Let's design for a PUE at 20% utilization or lower. And so a combination of those things, the containerized solutions and the building solution that went to support them, really changed our thoughts about how we should design a facility, especially in accordance to the maturity model of the total cost of ownership.
Yeah, and it was interesting to me to watch, I mean, some of the things that I really learned in this was the container efficiency. The overall container efficiency dropped the site PUE. Because when we were starting to look at PUEs, partial PUEs in the containers at 520 kilowatts of load on the roof at 119 Fahrenheit outside, achieving 1.044, right? I mean, that's just incredible. And then that result actually dropped the site PUE down to an average of 1.35 with a best of 1.26. So that's at 30 to 35% load. And so we measured it on one of the hottest days in August, and then we had measured it, of course, within January. But one of the biggest challenges in this project was how did we get level 3 PUE data
Yeah, it was a big challenge.
out of this data center and actually provide it back to the green grid as the valid points within the paper, right? So you were on a number of those calls, right?
Yeah, we went through a lot of challenges. Level 3 PUE means you have a fully instrumented IT load. We use billing grade meters at our power strip level and our racks to get a lot of electrical information. And depending on the monitoring system, we found that there were different challenges. As an example, one monitoring system, if there wasn't enough change, it didn't really, in the actual measurement, it didn't really refresh that measurement. So it caused a flatline measurement. And we looked at that and said, well, there's been no changes. And we actually went back and looked at it and
it's
saw
got to
that
be wrong.
Variation got to be wrong, right? So that means with level 3 PUE, we're not calculating what that result is. We're actually measuring it every time. Another challenge in the PUEs, we found that we were actually monitoring a little bit too extensively. We were monitoring some points every 7 seconds, and it was just a huge amount of data that we realized we didn't need, and we actually brought our accuracy up a little bit by monitoring a little bit less.
So we had 1.5 billion measurements in 1 month of the data center infrastructure. I mean, so it's fine-tuning that. But to the discussion today was all around those pieces and why and what the implications were and what we would do differently. And it was rich discussion. And so having people from Microsoft all the way to Yahoo to at Tokyo Power from Japan, Salesforce, and then Oracle and of course Equinix and just a number of companies. It was great diversity of people that actually were able to give very, very valid input and have very challenging questions about what we did, why we did it, and also the applicability into their infrastructure.
Yeah, very engaged, very much wanted to understand if I'm a colo provider, how does this affect me? Should I be preparing for some of these solutions? How would density affect me? How should I look at my total efficiency if I have a mixed workload in there? Can I optimize for some of these things that we found in Project Mercury? So lots of cool discussions, lots of findings that we're welcome to share out with our peers.
So ultimately, it was a great session, and we had, I think, it was value on both sides, both from an eBay perspective of being able to share the information, and then from the other people consuming and actually challenging and seeing how it applies. And then ultimately, we're sharing this information back out with the industry. That's the most important thing from a charter of Data Center Pulse. We want you guys to be able to see what's happening. And so the Project Mercury case study from the Green Grid is available on the website. You can see the URL here. And so please read through that and send questions. And as well, if you're not a Data Center Pulse member, jump into Data Center Pulse on LinkedIn and get involved. Get involved in those discussions, because it's not just about these summits. It's literally about what you can do every day when you've got questions. You've got a huge body of people that actually know what's going on and have great experience and influence about what to do in your infrastructure. Great. So thank you for watching this episode, and stay tuned for additional episodes of Data Center Pulse.